I've always, there was this documentary, it was on TV back in the 70s about how they did the sound design for Star Wars. And I remember clear as day a couple of guys, people tell me their names when I tell the story, who know this world, but a couple of guys in the desert banging on telephone wires making the laser sounds. And it just kind of blew my mind that that's how they did that. And so I've always been really focused on sound. I noticed by being a member of the IFP and going to the IFFM for years and seeing all those films, the one thing that always made certain films excel over the others, like, why is this film looks just as shitty as all the others, but it feels more professional? And I realized it was the sound. And that the sound is what takes it to the next level. And so I've always been been a major part of my collaboration. And I treat the sound design as a department head, because it is. And so I've worked with a couple of guys, Brian Emmerich and Craig Henriksen, and great. It's all done here at Sound One, mixed by Dom. And so it's the same team that we've been doing all these films together since Requiem. And even Pi was done by Brian. And the nice thing is that Clint is very open to that collaboration, and so effects go back and forth. I mean, most of the sound effects in this film are actually manipulated swan sounds. We took just swan cries and turned it into everything from a flushing toilet to a subway to a swan sound. And so we just manipulate the sound, so we use that kind of register to do all these weird things with it. And so it comes from a very conceptual idea, storytelling place. And I just hire people that care about story and using sound to do it. And luckily Clint and the sound guys, neither of them are really egotistical about how things lay out. And then, in the mixed room, we kind of marry everything and make it work.
Questions from the crowd, you said?
Can you talk about how you decide what subjects to write about, and have you given up writing your own scripts?
The question is how Darren has decided what subjects to write about, and has he given up on writing original screenplays?
Well, it's really nice to have another brain in the room that actually has to then go off and sit alone and write, because that's always the worst part about writing. I like talking about the scripts and coming up with ideas, and I do like the process of writing. It's just 98% of it sucks, and then 2% of it is good. For at least for me, so I can't stand people who are writers and actually, can do it, and I respect that a lot. But there, I do get to that space every once in a while when I'm writing, which is great, but it's rare. But I do want to write again. It's just time is hard, and I've been now I'm kind of lucky because I'm getting to work with some really good writers. So that's a good collaboration. And the last, Rob Siegel on The Wrestler and Mark Heyman here on Black Swan, they both were like excited about a collaboration where they were really trying to, make a film that I wanted to make, but still able to put their own ideas and personalities into it. So that's the type of writers I've been looking to get to work with.
Can you talk about how you decided on the ones you did, right? When you pick those subjects?
They were just very personal at the time. Pi, the first one, was kind of everything I thought was cool at the time, stuff I was thinking about, and I just shoved it in there. Requiem, I read Hubert Selby Jr.'s novel. I optioned the book for $1,000, which was a lot of money back then. I had to borrow it from a lot of people to get that. And then I kind of wrote it myself, and I got about 3/4 of the way done. And Cubby, Hubert Selby Jr., had written a draft of it, but in the 70s, like some producer, he was broke and homeless, and some producer gave him some money, and he wrote a draft, but he lost it. And then he was in his mom's basement, and he found it, and he gave it to me, and it was almost, he had chosen the same scenes I chose. And so then I kind of fused them together, and that's how that was. And then The Fountain, once again, was something I was thinking about for a long time. But I want to, I have an idea to write. I just, haven't gotten past the outline yet. But eventually I'll do it.
And Wayne in the back, please. Yes, you say Wayne.
Something drew you to The Fighter, where you were only the EP, but you must have had some other motivation that where you had a major effect on that film. Can you comment on that?
The question is about Darren's involvement with The Fighter, David Russell's film, on which he's credited
silver, did I just mention him in this earlier? No? All right, I was just thinking about it. Anyway, so he's a pal from film school, and he's from Worcester, Mass. And I begged him to do it. He wrote 8 Mile. He's a fantastic writer, and and he boxes. And I'm like, you got to write this script for me, and he wouldn't. I kept begging, and eventually he met Mickey and Dickie, the guys in the fighter, and decided to do it. So I did that, and I met with Christian Bale. So I kind of got together and was ready to go, and then I'd done The Wrestler, and I was kind of sick of, men without their shirts smelling like Bengay. And everyone was like, oh, after you do a boxing movie, you want to do an Ultimate Fighting Championship movie? So I just sort of, I loved the story, I loved the material, and I just didn't want to do it, and so I backed out. And then I thought it was great. They got David O. Russell, who I'm a huge fan of his. I was a student when Spanking the Monkey came out, and I think he's a great filmmaker. So I was really excited to see what he would turn it into something, and he definitely, made it his movie. So it's great, and they were kind enough to give me an executive producer for it.
Yes, Steve?
I was curious, since you mentioned Passover Christ in this movie, that you thought was filmmaking Passover Christ?
In The Wrestler.
Yeah.
Yeah, Black Swan. I was like, we mentioned it, Black Swan?
Question had a reference to the Passion of Christ in The Wrestler. What does Darren think about that movie?
It's a good question. I did see the movie. I kind of probably think what Mickey's character thought about it, which he hadn't seen it. No, I definitely had problems with it. I thought it was. I mean, now it's obvious that he's got issues with Jews. But I definitely felt it. I definitely felt it. I gotta say, I was like, the guy's got issues with Jews. And it's not because it's a passion being played over, because I think that's a legitimate story to tell. And that actually, I mean, it has been. There's a long history of this and anti-Semitism tied together, but the story itself is not necessarily that. I think, but I could see by the casting that he had all different types of Jewish stereotype issues, and so I had a problem with that, and that's probably what I came out afterwards. I mean, there's no doubt he's an excellent filmmaker. I mean, his films are they're very powerful, but I did have issues with it. I mean, this is a Jew.
You said Darren,
Do you have any projects that you're working on now?
Yeah.
What he's working on now.
I've got a lot of things in development that, old ideas, new ideas, this idea I want to write. So yes, I do.
If I could just ask a follow-up to that.
No, you don't need to.
Yeah.
You really don't
I'm
have to.
very tempted to ask about Wolverine, which is a project you've been into.
Well, I'm doing it because it's probably the only way I can get into the New York Film Festival. I just know you guys are going to give me opening night with the Wolverine. That's why I'm doing it.
Consider it done. But it's
Oh, you heard it. You heard it.
Because so many people who did begin in the indie world have kind of been migrating to doing comic book movies. I'm wondering if you could talk about your own interest in doing a comic book movie, and if you have any opinions on why people like Bryan Singer, Christopher Nolan, and David O. Russell has been announced to do a video game adaptation, seem drawn to.
Because that's all Hollywood's making. I mean, we'd all love to do Chariots of Fire for $300 million. I don't think there's anyone who wouldn't. I mean, maybe some of those filmmakers really get off on it, but I mean, I do think there's interesting stories and characters in that world, and people like to go see them, and so that's we're here to entertain, and so that's part of it. I mean, for me, it's about a different type of challenge, which is I've kind of done these 5 movies where, getting the money for them has been more of a challenge than making them in a lot of ways. I've been the only person in the room who's wanted to exciting to be the only, to be in a room where every single person wants to make a movie. So that's a whole new take on it for me. So I just wanted, I guess it's just for about experience, in the same way the wrestler was different than the fountain. And then to do a ballet movie after a wrestling movie, I think it's important to just keep trying new things.
Over there, sir, yes, you.
Yeah, I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is mentioned in the film. Thanks to using Wild Samoan wrestling school.
You went there?
No, I know people who have actually. I live really close by there.
Right?
And thanks for doing that.
No problem. They're cast out of there. I hung out with.
Yeah,
Awesome.
our local paper did this whole story about you hanging out in Allentown.
Yeah. It's a great day. No, it was fun. That's where we met the guy who walks around the 99-cent store with Mickey and puts stuff in the shopping bag. That was Rage. He was the first human being to lift 1,300 pounds over his head. It's on his business card. And I was just like, this guy's great.
Yes, I'd like to know, in the movie The Swan, two things. As a person who goes to ballet, what's her name, Mila Kunis, is that the name of the actress? Why did she have a big tattoo, which she was never allowed in ballet? And why was the movie so unnecessarily grotesque? I know the woman was supposed to be but I thought it was really too grotesque in the circus.
Scott, can you add they didn't hear it in that.
It's a two-part question. It's always the last one of the night. The question is, why...
As a fan of the ballet.
Yeah, as a fan of the ballet, this woman was quite perplexed by the large tattoo on Mila Kunis's back, because no ballet dance would be allowed to have such a tattoo. And then the other question, was why the film is so unnecessarily grotesque.
Well, let's see. Actually, a lot of dances have a lot of tattoos.
You don't see them in the audience.
That's right. It's called cover-up. There's a lot of tattoos, and so it's pretty common. But she does have a very big tattoo. But it's dramatic license. And it was sexy and cool looking. And the grotesque element of it. It's a very, very hard line as a filmmaker to know when is too much, and I'm generally on the wrong side of it. But I live and die by that. I think the fork scene in Mickey's head might have cost him the Oscar. Sorry, Mickey. But there was, and so it's about a line. And for me, the physicality of the movie, if that's what you mean by grotesque, is such an important part of it. And it's actually been really interesting. The response from dancers, that's kind of been the thing that's been the most complimentary from working dancers, is that finally people can see how hard it is, how much work it takes to create beauty. And that's what they've been thankful for, is for showing their pain. And if you, Ashley Bowder, the New York City Ballet, one of the great dancers, wrote a beautiful piece about the film on the Huffington Post. And she talks about her own injuries, which she says in our film, if anything, there weren't enough injuries. Yeah. And so, and it's about transformation. It's about, the film is ultimately a werewolf movie. It's about and that's what, if you know Swan Lake, it's about a girl who's trapped as a swan. And at night, at day she's a swan, and at night she's half swan, half human. And when I heard that, I realized it was a werewolf movie. And so I was excited to give Natalie Portman that type of treatment of transforming into it, because that's what the fairy tale's about. So I'm sorry if I upset you and offended you, but beware of my films. see you.